I'm Isyander.
And I'm Koda.
And today, you have a vocabulary word.
I have a vocabulary word?
Yes, it's going to be Pyrrhic victory.
Ah.
Simply
That's
put,
2 words.
2 words. It doesn't matter. It's a win so brutal, you wonder if it's even worth it to get it. See, most league games, or most games with first-person shooters. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. If you could not tell, today we're going to be talking about Baal. Can you guess how this one's going to end?
Badly.
Kind.
They're going to have to be balling out of their minds to win this one.
I don't know how I'm going to make it through this episode, but we will try our best. Yeah, it's called The Devastation of Baal. I didn't expect them to win, but you know what? Hey, angels are up, bugs are down on the INK 500. Yeah. So
now we get to watch some angels' balls get devastated.
Sure, why not? There are 3 options left. It is Hive Fleet Leviathan, it is the Octarius War, and it is the Plague Wars. You know how this is going to be. 2 get made, 1 vanishes forever and ever and ever. No, it's just going to stay in the losers bracket. So,
unfortunately.
Yeah, sound off in the
comments. We won't do the losers bracket.
No.
Kind of lame of us, honestly.
Do you know how many degrees of bracketing? No, I'm not doing that. I refuse to do that. The spreadsheet's complicated enough. Sound off in the comments if you want to see any of those. It
doesn't matter if it's only going to get 10,000 views. If the people want it, they want it.
Well, if the people want it, it's going to get more than 10,000 views. That's how that works.
Little do they know this is a managed democracy.
No, we anyway, sound off in the comments. Best one gets made, last ones vanish. And if those ones don't tickle your fancy, well, then you can put other stuff, because I see Crusades going for all kinds of stuff. Pretty much every topic there is. Some very long. You know, there's a couple of soul people out there crusading for something. And, I want to reward them, because, there's one that's been going for, 200 plus days. Mm-hmm. And, I don't see anybody else but them. Neither here nor there.
I'm just saying, you wouldn't see us for a month and that would appear.
Yeah. No, not that. It's something entirely different. But,
oh, really?
Yeah. You can also get to technically vote twice by heading on over to patreon.com/Isyander and Koda, where not only do you get a heavier vote, but literally twice as many videos. Just verbatim. A little bit more than twice, I think, actually.
No, a little bit under twice.
No, I think a little bit more. Because there are weeks where we don't do this, but then,
then we upload.
No. I think it's a little bit more. But either way,
even,
all kinds of fun episodes. Super duper fun stuff, as well as a whole bunch of perks while helping us keep these blindingly bright lights on and tuned to various degrees. Now, on to Baal. We're going to have to set the stage, and because, Baal's a planet, and then there's the 2 planets. This is getting. I can already see the look on your face. Baal's a planet. There are 2 moons orbiting around Baal, and that's where all of
the jokes write themselves.
Yeah.
The jokes write themselves.
I'm gonna be honest. It was never prime real estate.
Mm-hmm.
If
I remember correctly, I did see a map of this. The 2 moons are Baal Primaris and Baal Secundus. So,
Primus.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the jokes write themselves.
We're gonna need to counter this episode.
If you wanted names,
either way. Either way, it was always terrible to live there. It was never good. It was never prime real estate. Terrible naming aside, they had the single hottest Primarch land there. Didn't do a thing for real estate values. And I need you to understand. Brad Pitt moved into your neighborhood, and nothing changed value-wise.
I don't know if Brad...
nothing changed. Not a peep. It did not get much better. It is such an unappealing place. It is so terrible.
I don't know if Brad Pitt nowadays would make that more appealing.
Pick your A-list celebrity who's conventionally attractive. Jesus. It depends for everyone.
I meant he's got skeletons in the closet, but that's a story for another day.
Pick your A-list celebrity who's conventionally attractive. The same sentence still applies. That is a situation they are in, and saying he called it home, so obviously all of his sons are going to call it home too, and Space Marines are a lot of things, one of them being very, very sentimental. So they kind of don't want to give it up. That's where the main fortress monastery is. And frankly, between you and me, having your home be a death world is real convenient to the whole Space Marine thing. Mm-hmm. Because, look, if your planet's already so rough, you're either a cartoon skeleton or marine material, We just have more marine material available.
Yeah.
You know? And so it's fantastic.
I mean, we didn't even need to shape you into Space Marine. The planet already did
We
it
don't
for
have
us.
budget
We
for
just
PTSD.
needed to put the organs in you.
Yeah, we don't even need a budget for PTSD. Everyone already has it. Par for the course. Par for the course for living here. So
The same thing happens in Dune.
even if, honestly, yeah, this is a very frequent thing
In sci-fi is you came from a
dark
deadly
sci-fi.
world. Yeah, yeah.
And so even if they could, which they can't, they cannot fix the problems Baal has. They really wouldn't. It's just a very, very rough and tough planet. And that's just kind of the beginning of their woes, you know? Home sucks. And, I mean, yeah, look, they did get one good thing from Dad. They inherited like a rundown, crappy property somewhere, which kind of sucks, but it's home, and so they're going to hold it. But if Dad's genes did actually give them something that I find very humorous, that I just kept running into every time I read about Blood
Is it
Angels.
Future Sight?
No.
Oh.
Some of them get that, but not all of them do. The thing that...
The wings?
No, that's even rarer.
Oh.
That's even rarer. No. The thing that every Blood Angel has across the board, and it's so funny, is Sangi's genes are so strong. Literally, any one of them could walk on a runway
I see that.
without any issue.
It doesn't matter. You're getting mogged by any of the Blood Angels.
Yeah, and
Do you remember that there was a YouTube meme back in 2016 of like one dude who was like a Photoshop master who would take the textbook most beautiful face and he would Photoshop cartoon characters into the bounds of this most beautiful face. And so he's got like Shrek there,
Yeah,
and
and
he's basically turned him into handsome Squidward.
Yeah, that's exactly what happens once you get into that sarcophagus. You come out like just smoking hot. It is so funny. It happens with every single legion. It's not just them. Like the Dark Angels go in, they come out a little bit more paranoid. You know, Ultramarines go in, they come out with a newfound love for spreadsheets. These things, you're adding new material.
God, I wish.
You know,
if I could just hop into a case for a second and come out being an Excel master.
Well, see, the Blood Angels have the case situation, the whole coffin, and like you're just in. That's a whole thing. With the Ultramarines, it's more like a rigorous study from age 4, and then you prepare for the standardized exam, and then if you pass
boring,
that,
though.
then like there's a whole system to make an Ultramarine.
Make it
man.
dramatic.
I know it's, but it also fits for them. Not every single legion should be like this hyper dramatic thing. Some just need to be functional, man.
Yeah.
Like we have a K through 12 program, and sometimes that means a Marine comes out of it. Sometimes that means most people are just well adjusted here. So, you know, but yeah, for them they do it super duper dramatic because they're vampires. They're the Resident Twilight reference. They commit to it really hard, and I quite like it. So they do get that, and it is
Upsetting they don't have more interactions with the Space Wolves then.
What do you mean?
That they're the Resident Twilight reference?
I know they have other problems. They have so many other problems.
Someone please write the 40K fan fiction of like some like imperial princess or something like high up in the administratum having a will they won't they with a space wolf and a blood angel.
You know, Space Marines don't feel that, right? That's they're really.
This doesn't
weird.
need to be lore accurate. It just needs to be funny.
No, but this is something that is touched on at several points because something that we really benefit from when looking at the Devastation of Baal is they do not just look at the Space Marine, like, look at this just absolute mountain of a man carving through millions of Tyranids. No, we get, like, a water salesman's perspective. That's a real thing. That's a real thing that happens during some of the ground battles. We just get to see through the eyes of a water salesman.
Cool.
And it helps so much because you get to see how terrifying the Marines are. I'm going to spoil something that comes a little bit after this, but they know that the Hive is coming because they have the whole Shadow and the Warp thing, and also the Hive is not known for taking indirect routes. You know, like the Hive just goes where it wants to go.
They kind of
just what it wants to eat.
They kind of just take the most direct route because why would we waste time? We are running on like metabolic razor blade.
Sometimes they will like find wormy ways to get at things, and they've pulled up and surprised from different angles before, but typically you can tell when they're coming. Mm-hmm. And so they are aware of this, and they do put out like an all points bulletin to every blood angel we can muster, please God help. And there's this very good scene where you get to see just so many sons of Sanguinius, And it's so scary from the average person's perspective, because they're like, I can count on one hand the number of Marines I've seen, and this is more than that.
Yeah, this is like a whole army of
And
it.
some of you are, that's a paint scheme I've never seen before.
It's kind of like in military aviation, it's called an elephant walk. When you have like a bunch of like planes going down a runway, not necessarily taking off, but just taxiing down a runway just to show off how many you have.
Yeah.
You've seen pictures of these, right? With like a big bombers in the back and a bunch of like fighters.
I know the
hoarded in
exact
front.
thing now that you're describing it, and I didn't know that's what it was called. But yeah, I've seen those images before of like, yeah, but none of you are taking off, right? Just look at the spacing here, you know?
It's like frightening to see too. It's just like, Jesus, those things are huge.
Yes, and this is a very consistent thread throughout all of this. So they are aware of this thing coming, and they do begin preparing from it. And so it's the kind of thing where it's like, look, termite infestations are bad, but a whole block worth of termites like perfectly marching towards me, yeah, a disproportionate response is going to be called, because I like my wood cabinetry, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to defend it.
I don't care if it violates the Geneva Conventions. I'm pulling out a flamethrower. These termites will not get my authentic Herman Miller. I swear to God. You know how much I paid for this chair?
God, they're actually like not that bad used if you wait forever and ever and ever. Amen. And you find somebody who just thinks it's an office chair.
Yeah, you get a 20-year-old Herman Miller on Facebook Marketplace that someone sold for like $50 that retailed for $5,000 back when they bought it.
1,000 and change. Those chairs are expensive as well. Yeah, and so their basic plan, and it's a very simple one, is kill them before they get here.
That is a
very, very effective plan, helped by the fact that to get to Baal, at least the path they are taking, they have to go through a horrific system. It is a terrible system that is perpetually tinged red and just always so radioactive. It is like I built my house and there's Radiation Alley like right in front of it.
Yeah, and they have to take Radiation Alley to get to me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the basic premise here is let's hold them in this system and then put down as much damage as possible, because maybe they'll back off, or maybe we can stop them, or at minimum, even if we can't.
If we hold them back long enough, they might take enough DOT that they'll just die or turn around.
And throughout this entire engagement, from start to finish, the Tyranids are not undersold. This happens sometimes with the Tyranids, where like depending on what's currently going on, they will rapidly fluctuate in scale and capability. Throughout the entirety of this, they are very consistently a big, scary threat. It always sounds like they are the winner. It always sounds like them winning is a foregone conclusion.
This is like this is an apocalyptic event. This is not good. The only thing you can do is try and delay it.
Yeah, they are out fortifying worlds that just triple your rate of cancer. The Sisters of Battle are there. The Tempestus Scions are there. The Imperial Navy's there. The Imperial Guard's there. Dante himself shows up in the very front lines. That's how many people.
Grandpa back to the like general's seat.
The single oldest Space Marine outside of warp chicanery and dreadnoughts, because that's cheating. You know,
his biological age is the oldest.
Yeah, and he's total menace. The dude wears Sanguinius's face as a screaming death visage that actually turns on and works sometimes. He's okay. Look. There are several points where Space Marines interact with Dante, and they're shocked he's a real thing and not propaganda.
Yeah.
They're like, I read about you 2 centuries ago. I assumed this wasn't...
Yeah, I assumed you were either dead or like a children's tale to make people like cry and scream at night.
This is over 1,000 years of not meh service, remarkable service. Like... He's
got so many like service studs in his skull, he might as well be gilded.
He's a terror. And the most terrifying thing about him too is not necessarily like he's brilliant or capable on the battlefield, but the fact that anything he tells you to do, he will also be willing to and able to do. It's just, is this the best use for Dante? You know, like, is this the best use for Dante? Typically, no. Sometimes, yes.
Listen, I don't know how many service cycles those knees have anymore. Every time he gets up, he's pop, pop.
No, he's actually, trust me, he's doing just fine physically. It is, he yearns for death, yeah, but physically he's still able to serve. So
honestly, impressive.
Yeah. On top of that,
just goes to show: work out when you're young, you'll stay young,
or have a second heart and about 200 more pounds of muscle added to you.
Yeah, work out when you're young.
Yeah, that's the secret.
That's the secret. You can grow a second heart. I think that's how that works, right?
On top,
doctors don't comment.
Sure. On top of sending Dante, they also send the only Space Marine with a normal name, Gabriel Seth.
That's not a normal name. He's got 2 first names.
You meet people with 2 first names all the time. That's a real thing, you know? He you will have not heard of, but he's just as bad. The best way I could describe him is he is both old and accomplished, and there's no art of him using a ranged weapon.
It's just melee?
It is the epitome of fear the old man in the young man's game. You know? Like, you see most Khornate berserkers, and they're like, yeah, you're like 20-something and raging around, sure, whatever. He's seasoned with this thing, and that blade is the size of him. And a chainsaw.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, he leads the Flesh Terrors, who are the Blood Angels. Not the closest to Khorne, but they're definitely Khorne adjacent. They struggle the most with the Black Rage, you know, that thing where they see themselves as Sanguinius, making his final stand against Horus, and everyone's Horus. So they fight with everything they have, and they've earned their name, the Flesh Terrors. Yeah, like, there's no debate about their name. Nobody's saying maybe we should rename them. Nope, that's a very accurate name.
The only thing they could do more is like to grow wings suddenly and start doing aerial combat alongside this.
Speaking of growing wings, they also send forward to the Space Marine with the least normal name. It sounds like an OC's name, Mephiston. We covered him on Patreon. It's a very good episode. He's so strong. He's so strong. Mephiston is so stupidly strong. He is, honestly, if not the strongest, probably the second strongest Space Marine Psyker, period. He has been used as budget Astronomicon. His heart's been jump-started by a star. The stuff he's done is so absurd. It sounds like I'm making it up half the time, but this is the full weight of the Hive Mind has pressed against him and lost. He's a demon, has been like reaching through space to become material for a few moments, and he just paused it with his finger.
Are we going to start talking about his likes, dislikes, friends, and favorite album now?
He's kind of just gonna be a beat stick for this episode.
Okay.
Just incredible feats of sight. He just sets armies on fire. That is gonna be his entire role.
He looks at them and then they're gone.
Yeah, and so that's what they send, and I love it so much because it also highlights one of my favorite things about the Hive, which is its mind. Because, you know, the Shadow of the Warp, that's really, really scary. It's coordinating thousands of things. Yeah, that's super duper scary. But they really hammer home that this is not just a big cloud of bugs, but a very intelligent thing capable of coordinating wars on hundreds of fronts successfully. Like, you will see the commander section. I love the commander section for most Tyranid's things, because it'll just be like Dante, Seth, Zarathustran, Anacre, Gilliman himself, the Sanguinor, the Overfiend, Blacktooth, Steeltooth, Colossus with a K, because they fought orcs too, Bad Crasher. They have such fun names, don't they? Helbrecht himself, Kabanda, a massive demon, right? And then on the other side of commanders, you'll just see Hive Fleet, parentheses, Leviathan. That's it.
Just the single Hive Fleet.
And it's managing beating all of that. And it's managing going even with all of that.
Listen, Gestalt consciouses, they're not something to trifle with.
Yep. So their entire thing is just hit them as hard as you can right here. They muster as many ships as they possibly can. They send forward their strongest units. And with everything they can muster, they're still not certain they can win. So back home, they're shipping all their gene seed out. Like, they're boxing it.
They're packing it up and sending it somewhere else.
It's such a good buildup of them. It's such a good buildup.
This really is like a good apocalypse novel then.
Yes, it really does feel like this force that can eat anything, and if it can't, it will adapt and kill you. And it does that stunningly well. Do you want to guess how long they were able to hold that system?
A year or two?
2 days. 2 days.
Sure.
In 2 days, the battle in space was lost. They opened with bombardment. Duh. The next wave showed up with bulletproof slime all over them.
Ah.
That hardened on contact.
So,
yeah.
Joke's on you, fool. Non-Newtonian fluid.
Yeah. In 2 days, the Tyranids are now fighting ground wars on every single planet there. 48 hours.
48 hours.
48 hours.
Sure.
Thankfully, and this will be a continuing theme throughout all this, one of the planets they decided to land on had a ton of sleeping Necrons on it.
Oh, so that became a...
It's a hell of an alarm.
Yeah.
You know? That's a hell of an alarm.
Tyranid! Tyranid!
Well, it's less like Tyranids and more like termites eating your bed out from under you. And you're like, okay.
Okay, hold on. I gotta get up and deal with this now.
They are understandably really mad about all this.
I can't snooze my alarm and go back to bed. The bed's not there anymore. I'm not gonna sleep on the floor.
And there's Space Marines stomping around too. And so they just take one look at the bugs, they take one look at the Space Marines and Sisters, and they go, I can at least talk to the meatheads. We can work something out here.
The bugs are a problem in and of themselves.
Yes.
They just need to be dealt with.
I can deal with just a linebacker that has impeccable aim. I don't know what to do about an oversized roach. Like, that's just not... It's... sure.
Get the raid.
Yeah, just get the raid. And so they struck up a very... To call it a deal is strange. Because it is effectively... There's a home intruder in my house. Drop a bomb on it. That's the only way they can... They don't have any other options. That's the only way they can deal with this at this point. So they basically roll out a MacGuffin that will probably never be relevant again in all of 40K. But it set up a very cool scene. And they set up a unique form of Exterminatus where the Necrons used to run stuff. They were kind of him. They were...
Kinda. They won the galaxy at some point, didn't they?
And so they have this whole, like, relay set up to siphon the energy out of a star and, like, redirect it to different planets. You know, the kind of stuff that you would have if you had won every war in the galaxy and were just running things. And so they repurposed it, and instead of using the relay to send energy to various planets like they were doing, they instead used it like a magnifying glass to focus the star's power and just bounce it onto a gas giant.
And then they just detonated the gas giant.
Conveniently, this gas giant is also the primary source of promethium in that sector, which we have covered before, but it can burn underwater, it can burn in a vacuum, which just makes my head hurt a little bit. But yeah, it can burn in a vacuum. It is volatile enough to be used in any application. Most things in the Imperium are fueled by this.
It's the omni fuel. It's the everything gas.
And you can make it into a convenient gel, and you have war crimes on the go. Like, it's great.
Cool.
It's everything you could want. You could can the stuff. It is the perfect material.
Geneva has long been sanded down to be the base of the Golden Throne at this point. Don't even think about the conventions.
Yeah. And so because they're mining it out of the center of the planet, they just kind of reverse it. So it vents out into space, and they just vent out as much promethium as they possibly can. So by the time that beam collides that planet...
And they just make an incendiary bomb for the Tyranids in space.
Everything.
Everything?
Like,
does it just detonate the system?
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
that's...
Some of the planets are described as just having shadows on them at this point.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Because the problem with the Tyranids is, yeah, sure, maybe we could have used the beam to, like, burn them individually. But, like, by the fifth one, they'll be fireproof.
Yeah, that would have taken too much time. They would have adapted too quickly.
Yeah, and so you need something big and bombastic and vaguely plausible physically speaking.
Get them all in one go.
I don't think it's possible at all. But, you know, that's what they did. And basically the strategy goes from hold every position to just duck and cover. Just duck and cover. Something terrible is coming, duck and cover. My favorite is when this goes off, the Necrons just phase out. They're just like, okay, cool.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Peace.
Yeah.
And then they the Gaussian blur out of existence.
Yeah, exactly. And this hurts the Tyranids. It sends them back a little bit, but the cost is, when all is said and done, 92.7% of the civilian population's dead. We're not even at this was the stall point.
That's a Pyrrhic victory if ever there was one. Somebody needs to introduce these guys to the Forerunners from Halo.
I still haven't played Halo, though.
Oh, God. No, that's a deep Halo lore. I don't think they do explain it in the game. No, they do explain it in the game. You know the big rings in Halo? Big weapon to kill basically the Tyranids in Halo, the Halo's version of the Tyranids, the Flood, and it just the way it works is it basically does mass nuke.
Oh,
but brain nuke.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that'll be relevant later, actually.
Oh, sweet.
Something like that will happen, but this buys them a little bit of time, as the Tyranids lost so much biomass they can't even calculate it, and the Blood Angels just pull back. Like, we just need to
pack it up, retreat, get
we'll
back
figure
home.
out the refugee situation in a moment, because most of these planets are now utterly uninhabitable. There's nothing we can do here anymore.
They are char.
Yeah, and so this is where we get to the actual proper portion. And the entire time they're retreating back to their main system, they are bombarding planets as they go to try and get rid of the Tyranids that are there. There's this beautiful, terrifying scene of one of the planets utterly scoured of life, and then the rubble starts moving and a large bioform starts like assembling out.
Oh.
Yeah. As they're bombarding it actively.
So they're basically doing the spaceship equivalent of like walking backwards and shooting everything you have.
It cost them a full system to not even beat them, but barely stall them.
Stall them so we can continue getting gene seed off of Baal.
This is so demoralizing. The Sanguinor, which is like not quite Sanguinius, but basically as close as you're ever going to get to seeing him in battle nowadays, pretty much. It is a manifestation of him and is seen as very, very... It turns the tide of battles for the Blood Angels specifically and other Imperial forces, and is usually seen as a herald. And it never speaks, it just shows up, has wings, and whoops feet. It shows up and gives Dante a pep talk.
Oh, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
That's how bad this is.
It's that bad that it shows up just to tell Dante there's still hope. There is still a way out.
Don't give up.
Yeah, there's still a way out. As Dante, I promise you at this point, has more gray hair. So, we are now at the main event, the actual devastation. And for most of the beginning, it is just prepare. That is all we can do. He calls for help, and the entirety of the Blood Angels show up. Everything that's related to Sanguinius shows up to help. A full legion is assembled, and we're just going to ignore that for codex purposes because right now we just kind of need this.
Things are so bad. It's like this is a crusade, right?
Yeah, this is basically a crusade. The only ones who don't show up are the Lamenters, who stashed all their luck away for this day to not be here.
They're dealing with other things.
Yeah, I think one other one didn't show up, but it's not coming to the top of my dome. But basically everybody else did. Like 30,000-ish Marines. And you've seen what a couple hundred can do. These are 30,000
Yeah,
Marines.
this is full elephant walk happening right here.
Yeah. Like you said, they have to ball out of their minds if they want to keep their home. They have to throw everything they can manage. It's all hands on deck. They're putting every single body to work. They're like reorganizing where civilians are. So some people who are used to living on moons with low gravity are suddenly on Baal constructing fortifications.
That'd have to hurt.
It sucks.
Your cardio is going to have to get better very quickly.
They're activating every single weapon they can. They're over here turning on stuff that hasn't been turned on since the heresy. They're digging up the desert to find old bunkers. Yeah. They're putting like...
Oh, this is desperation.
They are putting bubble after bubble after bubble worth of shielding to defend.
This is extreme desperation.
Yeah, all the chapters are scattered throughout the planet and its moons to kind of form like a defensive mesh. And then in between all of that, there are full fleets of space marines in orbit, ready to intercept them before they can even make it onto the surface. And that's not even it. They also have every single psyker at their disposal, kind of trying to form a network, just crying for help. Just relaying, this is what's happening at Baal, this is what's happening at Baal, this is what's happening at Baal, and trying to hear back from the rest of the Imperium. Because when the shadow begins pressing down, it silences communication. It's why worlds, you never hear, oh my god, it's the Tyranids, it's just silence. And so they're just trying to get a cry out into space, while also critically, what's going on? Where is everybody? Is everyone aware of this?
just sending out SOS in psyker waves.
Yeah, everyone who was once a civilian is now a member of the Guard. That's how bad things get.
100% conscription rate.
Yeah, they construct moats of thirst water, which is a thing on Baal. I told you it's a death world.
Thirst water?
It's an organism that's developed to look exactly like water, but if you drink it, it sucks all the water out of you. Yeah. Baal's terrible.
The first person to have discovered thirst water
Oh yeah, an apt
was
name,
in
by
for
the
a
way.
time.
Yeah, yeah. Like the Tyranids get such good hype here. The Tyranids get such.
Do they drink the thirst water?
We'll get to that because they're not even here yet.
I found a new
They're not even here yet. What?
new term that I'm going to use for every single one of Belle Delphine's products.
Yeah. That's accurate too.
It is.
Bathwater.
Yeah, bathwater, keyboard. What is wrong with you people?
Okay, no, it's fine. It's whatever. Yeah, no, that's the entire time they're sending pot shots out to the Tyranids. I'm just gonna keep it pushing. There's a lot of things I need to cover today. Her bathwater is so low on that totem pole. It is so low on that totem pole. There's a lot I need to think about.
If you
borderline non-existent.
If you drink the keycaps, they dry you out. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, sure. The entire time they're taking pot shots at the hive as it's showing up, and eventually we get to the point where I can't see the stars anymore as the full force of the hive descends.
Frightening.
Yeah. Within hours, every atmosphere is a light show. You can just see the fleets firing off, not regular bombardment, but micro nukes. They're just opening with nukes. They're just opening with nukes because that's the caliber of threat. Does nothing.
Cool.
The Space Marine fleets...
Well, they did just come through the radioactive system, so like...
Well, I mean, it does cost the Tyranids like a couple hundreds of ships, but there's thousands of them.
Yeah.
There's thousands of them. And while they're
just a drop in the bucket.
While they're attempting to hold the Space Marine fleet, from another angle, another tendril shows up.
Because, of course.
Yep. And within moments, every single planet's now dealing with them making planetfall. It's... The weather
messy.
Begins to change. Spores take hold in the air. Chitin begins raining down in massive slabs, bombarding the shields.
Basically, everything we covered in the
Tyranid episode.
the Tyranid episode.
Watch the beginning of that episode.
Yeah.
That's exactly what everyone is experiencing.
What poor Stooge went through is exactly what's happening here.
Most of the moons aren't faring as well as Baal is. I'll tell you that much. It's really not good.
I mean,
but
it's the bigger space. I imagine most people are there.
They're actually really focused up and are only on like their fortress monastery. Everything's there. And that's able to hold for 20-ish waves of Tyranids. Just wave after wave after wave of them just slamming against the shields and not being able to get through. Slamming against the shields, not being able to get through. The thirst water wrecks them. That is a...
They do actually drink the thirst water.
Yeah, it is a foul trick. It is a foul trick. And the entire time, there are just people who didn't really know... What? What has you so giddy?
You could just imagine the Tyranid Hive Mind. Like, look, I found something. And it's just the keyboard.
She sold it bottled, too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, no, I remember that. That was the first thing. And I remember being just as exasperated with that as I am with discovering this new keyboard.
Yeah. And so the thirst water does a number on them. They're just...
as the gaming community.
Yeah. And they... The thing I love the most about this portion specifically is because, again... we get the perspective of not the Space Marines dealing with this. And so, specifically when you start losing tracks of Tyranids waves, because a lot of this episode could be 1,000 Tyranids show up, a few Space Marines beat them back, 1,000 Tyranids show up, a few Space Marines beat them back. But during one of the waves or so, the Tyranids finally seem to figure out a plan to deal with the water, which is just flood it. So there are these swarms blotting out the sky constantly. There's just hundreds of tiny little organisms constantly running around. And all at once, they just bum rush the water.
Oh.
And just want to fill the moat with their corpses so they can be walked over effectively. Like, all the swarms organize right above it and, like, all drop dead at once. It is just... a horrifying scene, especially from the perspective.
They basically World War Z themselves into like bridges over this thirst water.
And it feels like they're so smart because, first of all, the poor people there can't really fully make out what's going on because they don't have the vision of Space Marines.
And that's also just they're blotting out the sun, I assume, at this point.
And their tiny little gaunts running around specifically to draw fire away from the ones that are supposed to die in the moat. So like they're out there trying to bait guardsmen into shooting them effectively, like waving and running almost. Space Marines are not playing these games at all. They're just heads, but there's thousands of these things. And eventually it piles high enough that, you know, the bioforms you see in trailers ripping apart Space Marines?
Yeah.
They can walk over the bones now.
Oh, no.
And it becomes a waking hell.
Yeah,
the air is impossible to breathe as it's mostly acidic at this point. There's chemical fires everywhere. And these poor people on the surface who can barely cope with talking to a Space Marine are now forced to see them at full tilt. Like, I'm not talking a Space Marine just like walking around. No, this is them trying to their actual maximum, and it's a horrifying.
You know what I imagine this is like? Have you ever seen those Navy like air defense guns, the automated ones?
You gotta be more specific than that.
The one featured in the look, a civilian airliner meme.
I'm completely and mentally stable. Oh, hey, look, a civilian airliner. Do it. You know you want to do it. Lock it. Just do it. Just lock onto that civilian airliner. Come on, just do it. Do it now. Just do it. Lock it. Lock on. Just do it.
That gun.
It's
got a big cylinder on top and then a like rotary barrel on the front, and it just like automatically tracks things in the air. I'd imagine seeing a Space Marine like in work or at work is like seeing just a living one of those things.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if that robot was flesh. Yeah. That's what you have now.
You feel utterly insignificant. There are tanks running around trying to, like, tame this and control where the flood is allowed to make it in. But honestly, at this point, they kind of can't keep track of where all the civilians are. So there's people just getting run over left, right, and center. On top of that, these are blood angels.
So every so often, everybody is rolling like a D20 to not suddenly get the Black Rage.
Actually, from our perspective, we get it even better because they just barely make it into the shields, which are still holding even after the moat fails. And as they enter, they hear an equally loud shriek to what they were hearing outside as just full jetpacks engaged, several blood angels with the Black Rage just leap over the wall, howling Horus at them.
Cool.
Like, you not only get to see Space Marines at full tilt, you see them beyond full tilt.
You see them hit 120%.
Including the poor chaplain there who's just like, they're just civilians who are being hunted by Horus. Get out there. He's there.
You see the one with the big claws? That's Horus.
I'm not gonna lie. I'd drop a brick if I saw that. Do you know how terrifying that would be?
Oh, no, absolutely.
It's just a ton of steel, barely containing a man.
Listen,
howling Horus at
afterburners attached to a person screaming bloody murder while they're, like, flying directly at me? Yeah, no. I'm all of the fluids.
So that's happening on the ground. In the sky, obviously, just so many Tyranids, so many planes. It doesn't make a difference. On every other moon, it's the same scene. And below the fortress monastery, they have a new bioform digging a tunnel.
Cool, why not?
They feel so vindictive. It's so fun to see this.
You'll keep us held back from above. We'll come up from below.
So our poor civilians make it into the bubble where they think it's safe. Below them, it's really not. And the meanest thing is the Tyranids burrow in and immediately go for, like, the neophytes and the Space Marines, basically being incubated at this time.
That's dirty.
Which miffs Dante and every other blood angel, so they go down there to deal with that immediately. Which was the point. As they send a more intelligent form in to disable the shields. Which brings them down.
And now it's all hell breaking loose.
The moment that shields goes down, his hairline goes back an inch. Dante's hairline just goes back an inch. The tide immediately turns. At this point, It is objectively a Tyranid win. There is no debate about it.
No.
On the main planet, they have no defenses left. On every other moon, everyone is fighting within an inch of their lives. They've basically lost the training camps they had on one moon, and the others just... Oh, man.
Listen, when they're sending in a horde of Blood Angels with the Black Rage to deal with this problem, I figure they're
things are not going great.
They're on the ropes.
The Tyranids are so far up at this point, they are diverting resources into draining the life out of the desert, like sucking the minerals out of it, because it's like, well, we're done. Ball's over. It's, which, by the way, they're eating radiated dust and converting that into useful things. I'd like that dread to sink in there for a moment.
Yeah. We're redoing Fiesta Wear.
Was that stuff? Oh, yeah, no, it was radioactive. Yeah. Things are looking very grim, and even our named Marines aren't doing too hot. Like, in a cave somewhere, you have Mephiston so desperately attempting to reroute a FedEx package that contains the demon that broke Sanguinius's legs, because he saw all this bloodshed, and he's like, oh, I'm a Khornate demon? There's no way you're leaving me out of this. And so he's desperately trying.
Put me in, coach.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I will help you just this one time because it's a fight. Put me in.
And so that thing's trying to claw through. Mephiston's trying desperately to hold it back, which he does manage to do and kick it away, which pisses it off. And so it starts flying there the normal way. But he's out of the main fight because of this. You have huge swaths of Seth's company just going into the Black Rage, and it's bad.
It's bad.
It's so bad.
It's bad. It's bad. It's really, really bad.
Yeah. Hold on. At this point, the only thing they're defending is a citadel and the memories within it. That's it. That's all. They are stuck holding onto basically just memories. When the echo of a different imperial loss rings out. You want to take a guess?
This is Gilman showing up, isn't it?
No.
In his big, weird capital ship that's like how many kilometers long?
No, though if they had that really would help. If they had Sanguinius. But no. While they're doing all this, the Imperium's also on the ropes pretty much everywhere else, including a tiny little planet nobody really cares about, known as Cadia. I don't know if you've heard of it. They're taking an entirely different, totally unrelated, catastrophic loss over there when one guy decides to chuck a controller into the ground and shatter half the galaxy about it.
Wait, this is happening at the exact same time?
Yes. For Cadia, their breaking means a loss at a scale the Imperium has never seen before. At least for the next 5 minutes. For Baal, it means suddenly every Blood Angel feels something wash over them.
Yeah, the lights just went out.
And first of all, the servitors in the room start speaking tongues and jittering about, so that's not good. Thunder's ringing out throughout the entire planet. Like it feels, it's described as like the planet's undergoing exterminatus. The whole thing is heaving and shaking, but nothing's breaking yet.
The servitors stopped speaking Basic. They've started speaking in Python. Somebody get a tech priest.
Yeah. Meanwhile, outside, every single Tyranid voice in unison shrieks in pain. Billions of life forms shrieking out. It's deafening. Some people are struck with visions and fall down. Other psychers just become bombs, effectively. Dante can't even stay standing. Like
this knocks Dante over?
Several Blood Angels fully are... They lose themselves. When they wake up, they think they're Sanguinius fighting Horus.
I see.
They fully forget who they are because of this. And that's for regular mortal minds.
A bunch of Blood Angels just got hit with the think fast chuckle nuts and they woke up.
And they woke up on the Vengeful Spirit. There's flashbang Horus. Okay.
I guess this is where I'm at.
I guess this is how it's supposed to end. And so for every mortal mind, it can only be described as something objectively evil is happening. For the Tyranids, it feels like somebody's cutting through their nerves using a hot pair of scissors. This is a wound through their mind.
That sounds wonderful.
Trillions of bodies fully disconnect.
I kind of really hate 1,000-degree knife challenge or 1,000-degree knife experiment versus Brainstem.
Do you know how bad it is?
How?
First of all, Every single swarm in the sky falls to the ground, some with smoking brainstems, and the Tyranid hive mind is described as passing out for a second. For a moment, it ceased to be. A collective consciousness just, I'm back. Yeah.
The Hive Fleet got hit with a KO?
Yeah. This is something they've never felt before. This has never happened before. A line just got carved through reality and themselves. It's bad. It's bad
for everyone.
And even when it gets up, because only like a second or two, it's still not fully connected to everything. Mm-hmm. Most of the minds on the planet...
Well, it just got punched in the head.
Yeah, most of the minds on the planet are fully disconnected. And this is where the biggest weakness shows up, because without the hive mind... they're just gibbering animals.
Mm-hmm. They are just bugs.
They are just bugs, and the Blood Angels are wounded. There are a few of them. Their armor sucks. They have no ammo. However, they are still Space Marines, and these are just COD zombies at this point. So I promise you now, they're out there just doing laps and training them. Like, for about 6 days before the connection starts being reestablished, they're having a great time. There's a scoreboard up somewhere, because it's so easy. This is so easy.
One more train and I can pack-a-punch my bolter, brother.
Oh, I almost forgot. That line that was carved through reality served as an expressway, so that corny demon that wanted to make it here made it onto one of their moons, slaughtering so many Tyranids in the process.
So he had a fight.
Yeah, he had a whole brawl.
He had a whole fun time.
You look up to the sky and there's now a cornate sigil.
It's painted on the moon.
Painted in Tyranid skulls on the moon. And you are the chapter that drinks blood and rages. So there's I can't count.
I suddenly feel
wounds.
At least 1% cornate more.
Yeah,
now.
No, it's basically a big billboard to corn. It's just up now, and they have to deal with that eventually. It's
not good.
Yeah, it's even though things are getting better.
It's slightly better now because the Tyranids have been weakened, because again, punched in the head, but
far worse than being punched in the head. It's written so well. It's written. Read The Devastation of Baal. I'm not fully spoiling the book because there are like other things that happen.
Would you say it's like liver punch and punch, like a whole like at the same time? Discombobulate.
Pretty much. And so we are now in the act. This is the end at this point, you know? Yeah, sure. They've been having a great time training them, but something is starting to reconnect them.
They are, I mean, it's a hive mind. At some point, they've got to figure out how to phone back home. Or some more intelligent part of the hive mind is stitching things back together.
Something is stitching things back together, and they are reforming. Not fully. It's still taking time, but even the Blood Angels can tell. If they get reconnected, we're hosed. If this reboots, we are done. And so the main priority here shifts at this point, because it's no longer defend Baal, or even defend its moons, or defend the civilians.
We have to go on the attack or everything's lost.
It is... Dad was one of the first Primarchs to die anyway. And he did so facing a threat that the universe had never seen or was prepared for. Who are we but not to go out like he did? And maybe it'll help the worlds nearby.
And so they just decide to Hail Mary it.
They have nothing left. They conscripted every man, woman, child they could. They've thrown everything they can. They used malicious water to try and hold the line. They used water that's mean to try and hold the line. They sacrificed an entire system, a whole system opened with nukes. There's no gas left in the tank.
Opening with nukes is wild, yeah.
I told you there were 30,000 to begin with. At this point, there's a little over 2. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
27,500. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's bad.
Give or take, Warhammer numbers always shift.
Yeah, they're wacky.
For all I know, there could be a book that comes out in a year that says there were 300,000 Marines.
Listen, it's like, Warhammer 40K, but we're in the 43rd millennium.
Yeah,
Get your numbers correct.
But yeah, so it leads to one of my favorite scenes where they are gathered and they all begin to paint their armor black with what they can find, be it ash, be it soot. And they are all willingly inducted into the Death Company at this point. Not only because they know once they leave here, they're going to fight to the fullest of their ability, which means they will give into the Black Rage, but also because they're mourning a fallen chapter. And Dante himself has this thought of everything I've done, I oversaw the death of one of the Emperor's bloodlines.
That's got to weigh heavy on the heart.
Oh, yeah, it does. And the entire time, by the way, he feels the Sanguinor hasn't shown up. It hasn't shown up.
You gave me one pep talk, said it's all good.
Now,
I need another pep talk.
He doesn't know Cadia was happening. It was preoccupied somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't know something bad was happening somewhere else. But as far as he's concerned, they've been utterly, this is it. This is the end.
This has been the bad thing that's happened.
And there's this beautiful moment where they really get to shine, because, you know, the Blood Angels are very artsy. Obviously, par for the course in 40K, one of the hardest speeches is given by Dante, because, I mean, it's
of course,
it's very good, and this is a final stand. But also there's this moment that I prefer a little bit more, where they're all singing their song of death, because, you know, artsy and stuff, and there's nobody left to even out the like deep baritone that most Space Marines have, and so it's not as pretty.
It sounds
as it
like a
normally
death
is.
chant rather than like a full funerary song.
Yeah, it's like rattling windows, because there's not even servitors left to like hit some high notes. It's just bass. It's just bass that they have at this point. And after their song and their speech, they open up the gates to the tower where they keep those who have been taken by the Black Rage even further beyond. There's a whole tower where their gene seed, for lack of a better term, went haywire, and so these just massive hulking people spilling out of their armor, fully afflicted by the Black Rage, pour out. It's like their greatest shame. There's one guy whose job it is to guard it, and he's supposed to guard it until the end of time. Guess where we're at?
This feels like the end of time right now.
Yeah, so the tower is opened, and the Blood Angels use everything they can, including even Dante himself, for the first time in his entire life, fully cutting loose. I'm talking fully cutting loose. And they run out and face the Swarm Lord, which we've done an episode on him on Patreon. It's very good. You should check it out. All I need to say is he's a member of a Gestalt consciousness with a name.
Yeah.
That's an individual.
Yeah.
That is a thing that they call on when they need a problem fixed.
It may not be the center of the web, but it definitely is a load-bearing node.
And that's what it's doing right now, helping stitch things back together. And it is hulking and pouring out these spores that are etching Dante's armor as he's going towards it. His skin's blistering the entire time. And we enter the final phase of the fight where he dukes it out with it. And it's described so well because, you know, like, if this podcast were to take a very different turn and I were to leap over and punch you, you'd have a lot of telegraphing to it, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, you'd see my arm go back, you'd see my spine.
I'd have to see you jump out of your chair.
Yeah, that chair would see my legs, like, engage as I leap at you, you know? Like, just, if fully just, there's a lot of muscular tells to when an action is happening. And you see that in animation all the time, where, like, to oversell an action, you'll see they exaggerate the before of the action.
My favorite example of this is actually League's animations, because of how, from the top-down perspective, they're so exaggerated. Yeah. Like, my favorite is, what's the Aatrox? The big demon with the great sword. When he does his big slam down, his torso is like huge, and then he gets and his sword just like fully curves into the ground to accentuate the impact.
The movement. But there is a way that bodies move that we are used to and is natural and is telegraphed. And you'd think the same thing for Space Marines dealing with other things. There are tells with everything in the Swarm Lord's melee. Spoilers. But the way they describe it moving is like, it's like its swords are alive. There's not as many tells. It's like twisting and moving. It's like whenever you see, I'm forgetting the name of it, but like, you know, whenever you see like a robot fighting and like its torso can almost fully turn around with no issues at all, that's how it's described as moving. And he is having a rough time keeping up with it. The thing shatters one of his hearts, several of his vertebrae, breaks all of his ribs, goes clean through his armor, but he still manages to win the day at the cost of his death.
Cool.
Yeah. And that is the end of the Devastation of Baal right there, with Dante dead on the floor, massive crater in his chest, missing a heart, and the Swarm Lord's head melted from him basically overriding one of his weapons and not letting go directly into its head the entire time, as it was trying desperately to prevent that. And this brings me to the one complaint that everyone has about this, which is...
I think I can predict this. Dante gets revived.
No, that's actually fine.
Oh.
It's actually done very well because the entire time he's battling with insane amounts of doubt, and you can see his mind fragmenting from fully cutting loose, and he's trying so hard towards the end there because, you know, he's the son of Sanguinius. When the Black Rage takes over, you are dying as Sanguinius fighting Horus. And there's this massive mental effort to, nope, if I'm going to die as Dante. I refuse to die as Dad. I am my own thing. And he feels abandoned and sees these visions of like the Sanguinor showing up, but it's not really there, and the Sanguinor showing up, but it's not really there. It does eventually show up with the Legion of the Damned, which is how he actually manages to get close enough to the Swarm Lord to kill it, which is very helpful. But it does result in his death, and this scene where he's effectively like, thank you, Dad. Thank you. I'm done. I've done everything I can. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And Dad's like, about that.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry.
You are not yet done. I am so sorry. I wish I could give you the one thing you want. Unfortunately, you're still needed down there. And Sanguinius basically sends him back.
Funny.
And he wakes up howling no. So, like, the resurrection doesn't even feel that bad because this feels like dude, what more do you want out of me? What more do you want
that
out
felt
of
like
me?
it. That felt like my thing. I felt like I was done there.
Yeah,
what do you mean there's more?
I couldn't have asked for a better way to go. Please. What's more is like he's not even thinking about the future at this point. Like that's something he touches on with the rest of the Blood Angels there. The future isn't our concern anymore. Our destiny is to die here. Hopefully the gene seed we sent out makes it somewhere. If it doesn't, that's not up to us. We've done everything we could. And so that's not the part that feels really icky. The part that feels really icky is the line happens, which, you know, being that close to the warp and all that will mess with time.
A little bit, yeah.
A little bit. And enough time had passed that the entire Indomitus Crusade was able to make it to Baal, including Guilliman, which is how the day is saved. And the one complaint that most people have is for a lot of this whole arc, it feels very like, okay, so the Tyranids happen to wake up the Necrons, who happen to have a device that happen to be able to destroy a bunch of their life forms. That's acceptable. That's believable, right? And the Tyranids happen to be fighting at the same time as the Great Rift opening, and that happened to sever them from the rest of their brood, you know? That is also acceptable.
Conflicts can happen.
Guilliman Ex Machina is where people are like, okay, this is a lot.
Yeah.
However, overall, I'm still...
Yeah, because Guilliman can't have even been...
Time.
Alive by the start at the start of this battle.
He was.
Was he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he was. The timeline of the rebirth of Guilliman is something we need to do because it's very
bizarre.
It's not bizarre because when you see where it fits in, it does make sense how he's able to be here in all these places. But he's working overtime. I mean, he's not working short shifts, is what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
You know?
He was the first loyalist Primarch to get revived, right? So it makes sense that he wakes up and is like, I got a lot of work to do.
And so...
And he is the get-to-work style Primarch, so...
But I'm personally okay with it because it does track that, look, luck exists in real life. This happens all the time, and all of them feel natural, and I really like seeing the effect of the line on the Tyranids themselves. So overall, I'm okay with it. And also, the Blood Angels could have used more Psykers on the field. Instead, they were mostly diverted to call for help. It's not like they weren't doing anything, but... a lot of their time was spent trying to just pierce the shadow and get a message out, which is how the Crusade knew how bad things were at Baal, and they knew to get there. But by the time they arrive there, they basically find a chapter gone. They find
the dregs of a chapter.
If I remember correctly, like 5 chapter masters die, several chapters go away. There some of them were renegades that showed up, and they're gone now. And so it leaves off in this moment where Guilliman arrives with a few Primaris Marines that are made of Sanguinius, and that's where the
time really got like...
Yeah, time gets screwed up. I mean,
they did do the time warp again. They were in the
path of the line. So...
yeah.
And that's kind of where we leave off and their story goes on. I won't lie, when I was reading this back in the day, I remember thinking, are they gonna? Is this
it? Are they gonna kill these guys?
Because you just keep reading and you're like, That's another one.
This just keeps getting
That's
worse.
Chapter.
This just keeps getting worse.
Chapter. And you're like,
really sells the apocalyptic nature of the Tyranid.
It sells, and the things required to beat them this time when they're looking directly at something, I feel are fantastic because they are things that you cannot replicate, which is perfect for the Tyranids. You know, it's like if there's a repeatable strategy for them, they become something a lot less threatening.
Yeah.
So overall, I like it.
But then you have your own bespoke Tyranids that will really only appear in this story.
I like it very much. Going back made me kind of really want to do an episode on the book itself because there's a lot of very fun characters there. Some who don't make it, and there's.
Don't tell me who to get attached to and who not to get attached to.
Yeah, but there's plot lines you'd like and there's plot lines I like, and we should probably do an episode. And if you haven't read the book, you should read the book because Guy Haley can write. Well, I say this all the time, but pretty much everyone at the Black Library can write. But yeah, what do you think?
I really like this. Like I said, the apocalypse, the
feels
apocalypse,
so bad.
It feels so bad. Like
feels so rough.
It really does feel like a last-ditch effort that they are employing the skills of Necrons and demons. Well, I guess the demons are kind of just wanting to do their own thing.
Yeah, they're just.
I mean, I'm not complaining. Most Tyranids are dead, but also I am going to complain about the sigil there. That's a problem. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it really feels like, this is bad.
There's almost nothing the Blood Angels had that they didn't lose. Mm-hmm. Oh, most of the Sanguinary Guard died. Those guys basically never see the light of day, and whenever they do, they typically whoop feet. But
yeah,
they all died pretty much.
But this is what happens when you send an entire Hive fleet against one legion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, to be fair, it is a whole legion assembled again, but still.
It's not enough.
But still, it's nowhere near
not enough.
Yeah. This is why I love the Tyranids, man. But this is also why, they do the Blood Angels so much justice. It's so good. And we need to do a Dante episode at some point.
That we do.
We do need to do it. And there's several good Blood Angels, too. But thank God the Lamenters weren't there. That's my main takeaway, because they would have
just not survived.
They would have just been gone. That would have been. There would have been yet another one.
No more banana boys.
And they would have tried. Mm-hmm. They genuinely would have tried, as most Sons of Sanguinius do, and would not have made it.
Nope. Knowing them, they probably would have died in the Prometheum fire in the first system. Yeah. Just a series of bad luck.
Yeah.
They'd be right in the path of the laser. They wouldn't even die to the Prometheum.
Yeah. It's so tragic. But yeah, that does bring an end to this episode. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week for one of the options. Probably more bugs. Mm-hmm. Probably.
Well, statistically, you kind of set the bugs up.
The Iron K500
managed democracy.
The Iron K500 is nothing but bugs today, so it's going to be more of them.
And the Death Guard.
So
it's either cockroaches or stinky feet.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. On that note, thank you for being here.